So welcome to the very first Forgive to Live podcast. My name is Benjamin Norman. I'm here with my third mom. She has been a motherly force inside my life, Maria Trusa. And today is the very first episode of the Forgive to Live podcast. We are in the Yodigo Namas studio. This is a studio that Mom films from quite often, her own podcast. And I want to let you know that these episodes are going to be real. And I say that because during the episode, we're going to be talking about very heavy things. You know, you're going to see us laughing, crying. The people that we are bringing on here, these are real human beings going through real difficult situations. This is the real shit that people do not talk about outside there in the world. They don't have a place of safety. So I want to say this, number one, to warn you that this is going to be emotional. You know, these episodes, they're not going to be easy. They're going to be uncomfortable. But I promise you, if you're somebody and you're struggling inside this place, there could be a gift for you inside of this. This is something that we are doing freely to educate, to show that wherever you are out there, number one, you're not alone. You are a human being and you don't have to do this alone. So as you go, I want you to know that. Number two, we are lay people. You know, I am not a psychologist. Mom's not a psychologist. I am an interfaith reverend by trade. You know, we do a lot of things. We pull from a lot of different areas, all different forms of spirituality, things that we've picked up. So nothing we are saying inside this podcast episode is medical advice. We're not telling you to go and do these things. This is really an exploration of what we have discovered, the people that we have discovered that has worked for them. And the idea and the goal behind this is that hopefully you yourself will see something for yourself that will actually make a difference in your relationship to yourself, your relationship to your spouse or significant other, your relationship to your children, your parents, your business. I mean, we're going to cover all these topics. So without further ado, welcome to the very first episode of the Forgive to Live podcast. And we're going to talk today about parenting and parenting children who are cutting. Hi, Mom. It's so good to see you.
Hello, my son.
It's
so good to see you, too.
Good. I can't even believe that, I was driving here this morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, not, 4 years ago, I was here filming you and you were telling your story about, you know, your childhood, and we definitely want to do a whole episode on that. But just kind of thinking how far things have come, full circle, the way the universe just kind of guided the three of us, you know, together inside of what we've been doing in Forgive to Live. And so today, you know, what's on my heart is I really wanted to talk to you about, you know, motherhood. I know that this is a huge, huge thing with the moms that I've worked with, feeling guilt over, you know, their parenting and how their kids show up. And specifically in this area, I know that you have been through the fire as a mom, but especially with your daughter NT, you know, maybe just tell us a little bit about that, and we'll kind of go from there.
I'm reflecting as you're speaking on motherhood, and I say that for me is the most beautiful, most challenging, where I experienced the most darkness, and I had to go deep into the darkness to be able to find the light and bring that to motherhood. And it's the most beautiful job that I've done in my life. And to be able to say this at the stage, it's been a lot of years of feeling everything that parents feel. I felt the guilt. I felt I wasn't good enough. I am going to ruin this child. When my children were born, it's and I think we all experienced this, where it's oh my God, my life has ended. What's going on? I'm done. Now my responsibility is just to be a mom. So I've gone through many stages because I have a 40-year-old, a 35, and a 19-year-old. So we don't have enough time to go over all the different experiences because each child has been a learning experience for me. But for the purpose of what we want, the message that we want to put out there for the parents that are experiencing having a child that is struggling, and there's so many children that are struggling with cutting, with depression, with sedation, and we don't know how to handle it. And without really understanding it, we actually can do a lot more damage to the child without wanting. That's why, guilt, it's something that I go back to where Jeffrey, my 35-year-old son, I felt that I did so much work with Franco because Franco was my firstborn, and I was so disconnected to my soul, so disconnected, that by the time I got to Jeffrey, Jeffrey was, I never forget, he was 11 years old. We were living in this house, and Jeffrey was on the top floor on the stairs telling me what a terrible mom I was. You are terrible. He was mad at me for something. And I remember saying to him, you know what? No, I feel no guilt. And I truly meant it. Jeff, I've been the best mom that I could be with you. And I'll tell you why. Because every day I am trying to be the best mom that I could be. And I remember that for me, that moment in time, it's like imprinted in my heart, where I felt I've arrived when it comes to the guilt, because we never arrived. I think we continue arriving in other dimensions. But when it comes to that guilt, I have not felt it. And even we are human, so the guilt is a train, it's in our brain, right? So if it starts to come out, I can immediately put it to rest, because I know that I've tried. And even now, as you asked me about my daughter, we were talking how I just got a text from my daughter. She doesn't know that we're doing this podcast, which I have permission to speak openly about our experience, because she's gone through her own transformation, and she is completely comfortable with who she is, and in her skin, her body, and her soul. So, but when she sent me that picture of her in the mental hospital, before we did this, I'm like, wow, this is meant to be. We're meant to do this work.
Yeah, it was, it's definitely divine. I mean, that's how this whole journey has been. And obviously, we talk about this a lot inside of Forgive to Live, in our retreats, even during the seminar, getting people to turn the light on. And I remember, 4 or 5 years ago, up in Vermont, training with Franco. Maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago. It's been like a time blur. Yeah. And there was one particular summer, the family was down by the lake up there. And I remember seeing NT, and she was in a very deep gothic phase. And I remember seeing her and being like, oh my gosh, like, I can't imagine what she must be going through, as a child, especially in this world. I mean, for me, my 3 daughters, they've all gone through the ringer inside of junior high. I've got 2 daughters right now that are really going through it, inside of being in today's world with kids and social media and just how brutal it is. But, for me, the other night, my daughter Reagan comes into the room and she's crying. She's crying because, one of her friends is, online saying that she's basically all done, and she wants to kill herself. And she is bearing all this weight, like she has to do something about it, and my heart immediately goes first with my daughter, like, listen, I understand you want to be there for her and support her. And she's like, well, you don't understand. She rolls up her sleeves and she looks like a zebra. She's like, she's got cuts all over the place. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you know about like their parents? Like what's happening at home? Yeah. My kids have gone through a phase where, it wasn't, they cut, but it wasn't like something that grew into an issue, right? Yeah. But my heart immediately goes to like, what's happening at home? And she says, well, her dad's abusive and he's not there. And I don't know much about the mom. you know, and so I kind of got to this place like, oh my gosh, like we have to do something. We have to communicate something, because I know with the parents that I've worked with, every single one that I've talked to is coming in with some kind of guilt and shame about not being good enough, you know, not doing everything right and by the book, and taking literally everything personally when it comes to their children. I mean, like, what advice would you give for, you know, a mom or a dad who has a child who's going through this right now?
Yeah. First, I would get very curious. We influence our children, and we have to figure out within ourselves without judging, because that's the thing, that then we go into judgment instead of being curious as to what is it that I'm bringing in. And you have to do it, and I know this is tough to do it in a loving, as I always say, and this is our values of love, kindness, and respect. If we can get to the level of curiosity instead of judging ourselves and judging the children for what they're going through, it's more, this is happening. I'm going to focus on why it's happening and how can we stop it? How can we help? How do I support my child the way that that child needs to be supported, not the way that I think that child needs to be supported? That's big, because I know I made that mistake. I started with NT, as you know, the issue with NT is she was forced to be with both of us, her dad and me, throughout the divorce. And NT was an anxious child. Well, this is life, so
I guess that's it. You know, the
you
lights
have to
gone
deal
out.
with a little bit of less light as we're filming. So NT had to go and live, and it was like 50-50 almost, custody. And she couldn't handle it. It was very hard. And her dad, as much as he loved her, he just did not know how to love her. Because, let's face it, he comes with his trauma. And I know to this day that even though NT went through all this darkness, because a lot was influenced by him, that it was his own darkness from his past. It's not like he intentionally woke up and said, this is the father I want to be. I want to be disconnected to my daughter. I want to be, forceful with my daughter. I want to be fully disconnected to the point that my child does not want to be with me. That's not what he wanted, but he, for his own trauma, unfortunately, he couldn't get past that curiosity, right? That's why curiosity is so important, because when you get curious, then you become non-judgmental. Curiosity depletes judgment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if you are righteous, then there's no curiosity.
Yeah.
And that was his case.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents get stuck there. You know, like they assume, like this is one of the biggest things that I had to learn too, in my parenting, because I wasn't having the relationship with my children that I wanted. Like during COVID, like everything became a pressure cooker in my home. We got 5 kids at home. We kept them in the house for 5 weeks straight. Yeah. Like they didn't leave. Now all of a sudden the school system, we're doing homeschooling. My wife's like is so not technologically savvy. Like she hates technology, and now she's sitting down as the mom because she needs to make sure the kids are getting their work done. But during that time, I found myself yelling a lot at my children and feeling bad for it. Like, this is not the relationship that I want. And I started seeking for myself. And one of the biggest things, just on that point around getting curious with the kids, for me was is I learned that I was assuming that their intentions were always malicious.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing it on purpose.
That's a huge point.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like when you say get curious, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that totally, I feel, would open the door for a lot of parents, because the daughter or the son is cutting themselves, and now think about the guilt and shame, and the parents like, oh my gosh, how does this look? Like, I must be a failed parent. Like, how is this going to look in the school? How is this going to look in my family? Being in family environments these days where it's like, you got to control your kid. Everything is power over based, and I think parents default to this like power over, like, what the heck is wrong with you? Why are you doing this, that, and the other thing? So
because of the guilt, the shame, then you forget that this is not about you, that this is about the child. And I can tell you that I got so curious that I said, I know, and I told this to my daughter. I said, I don't know how to handle this. I am at a loss right now because, as you know, I didn't have to deal with this with your brothers, but I'm promising you one thing, NT. I am going to educate myself. I'm going to get help. I'm going to support you the way you need to be supported. I love you unconditionally. And I am not going to make this about me. This is your journey, and I want to support your journey. And I can tell you that those words to that child was liberating. And it didn't mean that NT was fixed with those words. Oh no, the journey was long. And I can tell you that I got a therapist for myself, but even if you cannot get, some people would say, I cannot afford to go to a therapist. I can tell you there is a therapy that's called dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. That's the therapy that I decided, because that's the other thing. Educate yourself in what therapy would work for your child, because not every therapy works for the child. That's why there's different therapy. And again, you can go online and you can find all the different therapy that exists. When I was blessed, because I have my niece who supported me through this journey, who happens to be a doctor in psychology. And I went to her and I said, I need help. Then she connected me with the dialectical behavioral theme from a hospital near where we live. Actually 2 hours. Everything was done virtual, because you were talking about the pandemic. This is when this was accelerated by COVID. So she started cutting during COVID.
And I think it's important too that we talk about like the severity of it. There was a situation that happened, and just because people may be watching this, they don't know us yet. So like. I know there was one story that you've told about, when you came home and you discovered her, she called you, and you found her in the bathroom. So tell us about that.
You know what's incredible, Ben, is that I didn't know she was cutting. I did not know. So then once you find out, you're dealing with the fact that, again, going back to the guilt, I was like, well, how could I not know? Was I not paying enough attention? Why was I not seeing that she was wearing long sleeve in the summer? Why was that? Then you start questioning. And then I shut that voice down and I said, this is not about me. This is about me now supporting her. So when I ended up finding my daughter, the first time, actually, I saw blood in the bathroom, and I'm like, what's going on here? She's like, oh, it's just a little cut. And then I saw something here, and then by the time I discovered her entire arms, Ben, her entire arms were destroyed. And I thought it was just her arm. Then I go to Franco's, my son Franco, for Mother's Day. And I see NT in the back of the playground, and I go and I'm like, something's off. Even Franco said, what is she doing? She's been there for a while. So I go in and she's like, no, everything is fine, da-da-da-da. Then I go home and I discovered she destroyed here with the blade. She has these very thick keloids here for the rest of her life. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God, she's in so much pain. So much pain. And after that, the incident that you were speaking about is where she tried to commit suicide. And I had taken her to the hospital. She was in the hospital because of the severity of the cut. We ended up I had 24-hour care in my house for months. I worked from my home. My business partner and I team up, and I would go to the office for a few hours and then come home. And then I have people that every day, 24 hours. And we had to watch her go to the bathroom and shower. Somebody had to be in the bathroom because we were afraid. She will find ways of cutting. To the point then later, I couldn't, we tried to put her in a program at home, and they said, no, she needs to be admitted. And I didn't want to do that, but I surrendered to the fact that this was out of my control and that she needed to go. And she ended up being in a hospital that was a dialectical behavioral hospital. This is all they teach. But you know, Ben, the money that we had to spend to put this child in this hospital, and later on, I'll tell you about the experience where she couldn't be in a hospital like this one. And unfortunately, we don't have enough resources, and the children are really not being supported in a mental hospital the way that they should.
Yeah.
And I actually said to Antica, she says, I have the privilege of being here. And I said, you know, you could use that, and this could be a force of your mission to help, because eventually we could build places like this for our community. But going back to NT, when she gets out, 7 weeks of being in this place, we think she's doing much better and all of that. She goes and she ends up, actually, no, this happened, and that's how she ended up in the hospital, because there's so many incidents. So we bring her to the hospital because the night before she went we would not let her go any place. And she said, Mom, give me 5 minutes. I just want to go and roller skate in the parking lot. And I said, okay. I gave in to the 5 minutes. And she calls me, she says, Mom, I fell and I'm bleeding. Can you come over? And when I go over, her arms are bleeding, drenched in blood. She cut her wrist. And I went into my Jackie mode, which is, you know, from my own trauma, I learned to have a superpower, which is completely disconnect from my emotions. And I ended up taking her back into the apartment, and thank God sent me an angel, because one of the ladies that was helping me, she wasn't even supposed to be there, and she shows up in the parking lot. And we take her in, and she passes out in the bathroom. And I carried my daughter to the car and brought her to the emergency room. And then we had to do something. So I couldn't handle it anymore. So we ended up putting her in the hospital. And then the medications she was taking Prozac, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a medication that can cause more suicidal ideation. And so and you have to get the dosage right. So we think we got the dosage right, and then she goes, and now she's in a program where she is a day program. So she missed her middle school 4 months of the last 4 months of her middle school. And she ended up graduating because she was an incredible student. But Ben, my daughter went from being an incredible student to a child because the medication and balancing everything, where she couldn't focus. And she couldn't really study. She couldn't read. She couldn't even study. And it ended up that after the hospitalization.
So just so we have the clear timeline. So
Yeah.
you find her in the parking lot, and after that, she's admitted in the hospital
For
for
7 weeks.
Okay, got
And
it.
by the way, Ben, she didn't shower, didn't brush her teeth for 7 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
I would go visit her, and her teeth were full. But she was homeless. And I think I said, God, I remember praying and saying, God, I know I'm gonna learn so many lessons from this, but boy, this hurts so much. This is really a dark way and a painful way to learn the lessons, but I'm surrendering that there will be lessons. And one of them, when I tell you that, is I no longer will look at a homeless person and not look at them in the eyes and help them and give them whatever. I don't care what they're going to use it for, but I look into their eyes and I see this could have been my child. And the compassion and the love that I have for these people is at another divine level. It's so there was so many lessons from this experience. She comes out of the hospital, and now the medication is not right, and she has suicidal ideation to another level. Because the other thing that is important to speak about is that when these kids are cutting, it becomes an addiction. So they're addicted, because there's a book, we were talking about this book called Cutting.
Cutting, yeah.
And it becomes an addictive thing. So they get a rush of endorphins that they get addicted to that feeling. Because we say, who the heck does that? We start judging. I know that on one side of the family, there was a lot of judging, like, you're crazy, how could you do this? Who does this? This was the reaction, who does this? So now we are putting that child that is already beating herself up, we are telling her, you are right, you're worthless, you are a piece of shit, you are crazy. All of the emotions that they have inside, now if we start judging them, they are now 10x. And I can tell you that one of the things that NT had is these intrusive thoughts. And this is something that we all have a little bit. But when you have a child that have gone into a deep depression, these intrusive thoughts are ridiculous, to the point that my daughter would tell me, Mom, I never want to have a child because I don't want this child to have this brain.
Yeah.
And she had a thought. She would tell me, Mom, what kind of human being am I? Because the person that I love the most, which is you, I have thoughts that I'm going to kill you, Mom. You're my mom. How could I even think of that? What kind of human being am I? To the point that I had to put all of the knives, everything. We had to clean the entire apartment. And I bought a safe where we would put the knife that we would cook with. This is to that level that I had to really prepare myself to deal with my child. And I would tell her, my door is open because I know you won't kill me. Because I know that you're sharing, and I've gotten to the point where I'm in your brain. You're not alone in your brain. I'm in your heart. I'm with you. You're not going to hurt me. I'm not afraid.
This is perfect. This is exactly what we've been talking about. Because I know in my heart there are parents right now watching this, going through this right now. They feel alone. They feel like they have nobody they can turn to. You know, and I talked about this in one of the Message to Our Kids, the podcast episodes. You know, I talked about this during our seminar. Why do we have a $416 billion therapy and counseling, you know, industry? Yeah. Like, that's a lot of energy being directed in a certain direction. And I'm not saying that there's something wrong here, like therapy and counseling is bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I am communicating is that there is a pandemic happening right now inside of mental health. And I feel in my heart, it's because we as parents don't know that the thing that we need to do is crawl into the child's darkness with them and say, I am with you.
100%.
And I've done this with my daughter Violet. My daughter Violet, insecure attachment to her emotions. And I feel like, and this is what I want to get there, but like with you, with children, and like what could be some of the reasons why they're doing this. But I know for my daughter Violet, she doesn't feel safe sharing her emotions. Any kind of emotional outbreak. And I caused this. This is part of growing up with me as a dad, disconnected, not connected to my light, inheriting the parenting model that was given to me, which was very power over based, and seeing her older siblings getting punished and disciplined into the ground and in control, really, like trying to control the children. You know, she witnessed this. So anytime there was any kind of emotion at all, even if it was like, after I have had this awakening and realization, I have worked on this, having a conversation where there's any kind of tension, as a little girl, she would run right to her bunk. Third story, you know, she had three bunks in her bedroom, all the way up at the top she goes, she's in the third bunk, and she would lay there. And I got to the point where I would just follow her into the bunk. And I would say, you do not have to do this alone. I know that you're carrying something. I know that it's heavy, and I know that you don't have to carry it alone, and I'm gonna lay here for as long as it takes. And I swear I did this for 2 months. For 2 months, conversation after conversation after conversation with her. I'm here, I love you, you don't have to carry it alone. I'm here, I love you, you don't have to carry it alone. I didn't come down on her, I didn't crush her, I didn't do any of this, you know, and eventually it got to the point where she started. I remember exactly the day. I had a 15-minute ride to her gymnastics every Wednesday night, and that was the time, the one-on-one time I had with her every week, where I knew I had her in the front seat, I could talk to her, I could ask questions about her life, and finally we're in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, drive-through, and she says, I'm struggling in school. I'm having a hard time understanding things. And then it opened up, and it opened up. And from there, it kept building to the point now, you know, 3-4 years later, she says, you are the only person I feel safe talking to my emotions. And she comes to me every single time with everything. And I'm like, holy crap. I didn't realize, number one, this would even be possible for me. As a dad, that's the one thing I wanted more than anything, is to have that level of connection, to be the guide in their life. So like, that is amazing. But oh my gosh, the responsibility now of, I gotta be on my A game, like, you know, and I'm not on my A game all the time. So the fact that this is happening, you know, with you.
But you don't have to be on your A game
of
all
course,
the time.
right.
Because that's the other thing that I had to learn, actually. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I am very put together. I have a lot of healing that I've been doing, and my kids have looked at me as a rock. You cannot break mom. Mom is unbreakable and the strongest woman, and da-da-da-da. But so then they built me up to a pedestal that they actually, without knowing, I'm hurting my children, because I become something unreachable. So with my daughter, what she helped me, and I had done some work with Franco on this, and I ended up with her saying, and my therapist helped me, said, tell her, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I feel, I don't even, and this is for another episode we're gonna do on gender identity.
Yeah.
She went through he, she wanted to be a he. I said, I come from the DR. I've adjusted to the fact that, you know, there's a new world, and it doesn't matter who you love, it's how you love. But I don't know how to deal with the fact that you want to be a he, but I'm going to learn. It's just opening, keeping your mind open, knowing that if you messed up, it's okay. It's okay. It's the intention. It's being open. It's being curious. It's not being righteous. Do not go and judge your children, because when you beat them up, they're inside, they've done a lot of beating up. To get to the level of cutting, they're beating themselves up. They think they're pieces of shit. They think they're not worth anything. And then they start cutting. They start sedating with alcohol. They start sedating with drugs. They smoking, you name it. Overeating, undereating, all of that.
Escape.
Is they're escaping all of these emotions inside. Mm-hmm. And we need to validate their emotions. Mm-hmm. Parents, that this is something a lot of parents do. And I did it, and I learned to stop.
Yeah.
And T, this is her father. You have everything. You have a gorgeous home. You go to the most incredible school. You have everything you want. You know what that would do to her? Look at what a piece of shit I am.
Yeah. I
have everything. I'm ungrateful. I'm not worth anything. Mm-hmm. You actually are doing more damage when you say you are ungrateful. I had nothing. Look at, if me, I come from nothing, I would say, she would tell me, I think of you and look at all I have. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I so sad? Why am I so dark? These are questions that they go inside and they'll ask themselves, and they don't have the answer.
They don't have an answer.
And then the parents go and you beat them up, and you beat them up, and you judge them, and you don't validate their emotions, and then you push them without wanting to, because that's the thing. And this is what I love about the work we do at Forgive to Live, that everybody is forgiven. When you realize that you were disconnected to your light, that if your divine light that followed you when you were born is a light that was covered by all the trauma. But the thing is that at some point you have to decide, enough is enough. I know something is not right, because we feel it, the anxiety, the judgment, that all the negative conversations inside is us disconnected. So if we get curious, and again, going back to Forgive to Live, this is why this work is so incredible. And look, I say this, I have 5 businesses, and I have a nonprofit organization, as you know, but to see the healing and the transformation that we are able to guide people and facilitate for people, the thing that gets me more excited is that we are stopping transgenerational trauma with this work, because now the parents don't have to be dealing with the guilt. And if whatever they did because they love their children, no matter what. No matter what. Remember when at one of the retreats that we did, where I said to the ladies, when your mom hit you, she loved you. When your mom yelled at you, she loved you. When your mom judged you, she loved you. She just didn't know how to love you.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge point, man. I first of all, I am so grateful to be in this space with you right now. I feel so moved, and we've been a year into this now. The thing that I want to communicate, because I know that parents have a tendency to make other parents wrong. It's the other parent's fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. But the thing about it is, we have to see the humanity in other people. And before we can even do that, we have to be able to see the humanity inside ourselves. So with this, we're going to conclude today. We have so many more conversations to come. There's a couple things I want to reiterate. The first thing first, and I'm looking out here. Hopefully my cameras are on. As you've seen my other podcast episode, I don't hide anything. It's like the thing that I want to let you know is number one. We're here. We're parents. We're in it. Like, we are in it. And the problem that I see for me inside my heart is if we can just get more tools, technology, education, methodologies, things that are working out there so people can discover them, ultimately for whatever it is inside of your home, like you have, just like my coach and my guide taught me, you have to find what's going to work for you and your family. So we're going to be here. We're going to be sharing things that have worked. We're going to bring people on and talk about them. I mean, NT's story, the woman she has turned into. We didn't even get to this.
Yes.
Like it's a freaking miracle. I mean, she played a song in front of our entire room at the seminar here not a few weeks ago. Just watching her, come into her own and discover the light inside of it, regardless of race, religion, creed, background. Like, I don't care where you come from, what you believe, there's a light inside your heart, your soul that needs to be turned on. And that's the message that we're bringing, and we're going to use everything that we can to just get people to connect here, because once you're connected here, there's nothing that can ever stop you. There's no darkness that will ever be too great for you to walk through this. So, if you're here, listening, tuning in, thank you. This is just the beginning. I don't even know where the frick to look. We look over there, just looking everywhere.
And I'm very excited for you to have NT here because I actually said to her, we need to share this transformation with the world because this is hope. As you saw at the seminar, the parents crying, and one of them getting up and said, thank you for giving me hope, and hugging NT. That was amazing.
I edited the photo of that yesterday, actually, and I was brought back to that moment, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And of course, there's so much for us to discuss.
Yeah. We're going to do this again.
Yeah, a couple of things coming up. This is all in real time. So first of all, we have moved our next seminar in New York. So if any of this is touching you, moving you, inspiring you, we have an opportunity for you as a parent first to get here to connect to your light first. It starts with you. And the very next opportunity is going to be March 8th and 9th. You're going to be here at our studio. We have a massive space that has been graciously where we've been allowed to use this floor, the space to put this on, and we've priced the seminar at like this should be a no-brainer. Right now it's bring a friend for free. So find another parent you want to come with, bring your spouse, bring your husband, bring whoever. It's $199 for day one, and I'm telling you, from me to you, I promise you, you show up here, you step in the circle with us, you will be connected to your heart by the end of that day. I had a big mission, which I shared to you with you, and we were in this together. Yeah. It was like all I heard inside my heart is by lunchtime, every single person in this room will be connected to their light, and by a miracle, it happened. Yeah. So March 3rd to 8th, and if right now, we do the retreats. The retreats, you're immersed, you're up in Vermont at Mom's beautiful home called Escapo. And if you know for sure, for certain, that this is the next step for you and you want something that's immersive and you want to be there with other men and women immersed in this for 4 days, the very next retreat, hopefully this podcast should be up by next week, will be January 15th. I encourage you to reach out, connect to us however which way you got here. YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, I don't care. Message us. We're monitoring everything. Email us, Benjamin at We Forgive to Live, Maria at We Forgive to Live. Find us, hunt us down. We would love to have a conversation with you. Comment in the chat below. Let us know what you're dealing with. Give us an opportunity to speak light into you because at the end of the day, that's our mission. That's why we're here. So anything else you want to say before we hit the...
You can have every conversation with love, kindness, and respect. But as you said, it has to start with you. As within, so without.
As within, so without. Beautiful. So we'll end it there.
Yes.
Awesome.